When does reselling games get into the absurd? This is Room and Board. Welcome to Table Talk, a series where I will choose a topic related to the board gaming hobby, share my initial thoughts, and then provide a follow-up Table Talk back video where I will distill the comments below, highlight a few ones, and that way, to coin a phrase that I created, we can all participate in the conversation. This is inspired by the Rodney Smith series of the same name, and today we're talking about board game speculation. Now, this is one that I've been wanting to talk about for a long while. Board game speculation, if you don't know, it's not just thinking about and speculating about what are the next board games to come to pass, but it actually refers to the idea of reselling board games. And in fact, reselling them at a much higher price. And so I wanted to talk about the ethics behind doing so, the business that people can make, the money that people can make, and why people do it in general. And I thought now was a fitting time, especially since we are in the throes of Lorcana. If you don't know, Lorcana is the newest collectible card game from Disney trying to rival Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And just putting themselves forward saying, hey, we've got all these great characters that people love, why not collect them in card form and make a game out of it? I'm not going to talk too much about the mechanics of Lorcana or how the gameplay will play or how it'll be different. It's a standard card game where you're dueling head-to-head. You're going to be constructing a deck of cards with a large swath of characters, and that's where the idea of rarity comes in. I find why I personally shy away from the trading card game model or the collectible card game model is because of this idea of rarity. And all credit to Lorcana, they have stated that they are not making anything mechanically rare, other than the sort of rarity that will exist in regular packs of cards, that you might get some rare gems. You're always searching, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, for that elusive golden ticket that will complete your deck. And there's only so many out there, and if you have it, then nobody else does. And I think that idea is something that leads into board game speculation, and speculation of sort of collectibles in general. And I've always been fascinated with the idea of that speculation, the idea that people can pick up these things often for free and then turn around and sell them for sometimes thousands of dollars. In the case of Lorcana, we have these promo cards, these D23 promo cards especially, that are now all out of stock, showing their rarity, where people are selling them for upwards of $1,200, $2,000 for Elsa. I saw this article had Elsa listed as $3,000, and you can see here that a full set of the D23 Expos promo set from 2022 goes for $12,000. This is the extreme of the scale. This is the extreme end of board game speculation, but I wanted to start here because I think it's pretty relevant to the conversation. At Gen Con, which just recently happened, people were waiting in line for 13 hours. They opened the lines overnight at like 5 p.m. and they weren't going to open the booth until the next day at 9 a.m. 16 hours, I guess. And so many people were lining up to get this thing, this exclusive thing, specifically for its exclusivity, specifically because nobody else would have a card like this. And it's the same card. They're giving away this same Mickey Mouse card. We have the Gen Con promo. Oh my goodness, it's another Mickey Mouse. I guess he's a little bit different than the Mickey Mouse the Taylor, but these are things that you're going to be able to get in the base set. The only difference being a little code at the bottom here saying, yeah, it's a promo. You got it at Gen Con, and not like the other peasants out there. And then immediately after Gen Con, we start seeing these things pop up for what seems to be a little bit more of a reasonable cost right here for $150. These things that were given away for free if you purchase the base game. These things that serve no purpose other than to give someone the feeling of exclusivity. Really no purpose, because you can get the exact same card in a common form, but people don't. And I don't want to focus too much on the idea of collectible card games, because I think this applies to the board gaming hobby in general. But I want us to begin our conversation here as to genuinely why. Why are these things so sought out? Is it the time and effort that you have to purchase from someone? Is it the blood, sweat, and tears that people had to go through being trampled on in line to get their hands on this exclusivity that you're purchasing? Are you purchasing their blood, sweat, and tears? And when you think about it that way, I mean, $150, if you're standing in line for 15 hours, you're making $10 Canadian an hour. That's not really a good use of your time, in addition to the money that you will have spent purchasing the base game in order to get this exclusive promo. Perhaps that means that these costs should be more, but it's just such a wild aspect of our hobby that continuously baffles me. And it continually baffles me that so many of us buy into this model, that it is only through our own FOMO and our own desires that the insidious nature of collectible card games actually works. That we give strength and power and importance to these things, and we know people will pay top dollar for them because of this importance that we put around them. And it's not just Lorcana and promo cards, but this applies to so many things in the Kickstarter realm as well. I cover a lot of Kickstarter here on this channel. Actually, I cover every single Kickstarter campaign on this channel and have been doing so for over 2 years. And there's no larger culprit in terms of this exclusivity, I think, than Kickstarter, and specifically like a lot of come on Kickstarters, Cool Mini or Not Kickstarters, CMON Kickstarters, whatever they want to call themselves. They tend to have decent Kickstarters and decently good value Kickstarters because of the amount of exclusives and stretch goals and extra little plastic figures that they throw into the mix to incentivize you to buy right now. I honestly feel like they give some of the largest value in a Kickstarter and in a board game because they actually give a decent amount of stuff. But that being said, I also have seen countless people purchase 2 games, 2 copies, because they know that when it arrives down the line, they should be able to sell that same Come On Kickstarter for double the price to some other unsuspecting sap who didn't get into the board gaming hobby on time, making them pay double, preying upon their FOMO, preying upon that feeling of exclusivity, and therefore paying for their own game. Sure, you get a free game out of it. Congratulations, I guess, but to me, a lot of this board gaming speculation that happens, and it happens quite frequently, I know because I'm cheap and I'm constantly trolling Kijiji and Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for deals. I see people reselling things, and I see people consistently reselling things, popular titles, for a lot more than what they paid for, just because there's a sense that people will pay that amount for it. They know people will pay that. We don't reject or rebel against this market, but we pay the cost, and we continue and we perpetuate that same cycle. And I'm curious as to if it is detrimental to the hobby or not. Maybe it isn't. Maybe the exclusivity, to play devil's advocate, to counter to my own opinions, because that's what I like to do in Table Talk. I try to really look at both sides of the potential argument. Maybe the exclusivity creates more fervor around the board gaming hobby, and potentially could get more people interested because they take note of these things. They see the big ticket items. They see the potential money that can be found in Lorcana or in board games or in promo cards or whatever, and they get interested, right? And it's able to hook people in. Or is that more of just a passing interest? And are we potentially alienating people in our hobby, or are we just taking advantage of other gamers. Whenever I purchase something used, and this isn't me trying to be on a soapbox, this is just my own personal mentality, I try to go for 50% MSRP. That's what I'll try to sell my own games for because I know that's what I like to see and that's what I will generally pull the trigger on. And so I kind of feed back into the market that way. And so perhaps the people pricing it also participate in that buying cycle, and it's just a reflection of their own values and wallets and supply and demand of the market. But I don't understand who wins in this scenario. Board gaming is a luxury hobby, right? Most people who are in this hobby aren't necessarily struggling to put food on the table, let's say, and need this as their only source of income so that they can make rent or they can put food on the table. I mean, sometimes that'll happen, but I think for the most part, it's people who have disposable income and recognize that these are luxury purchases and then use that disposable income to get things that they love. So with that in mind, when is board game speculation a good thing? When it puts extra money in your pocket and you can buy extra games. But if you think about the equation of who that money is being taken from, I don't know if it is necessarily beneficial to our hobby. And I've been on both sides of it. I remember selling the Blood Rage fifth player extras that I got in the Command Time Machine, and I realized I didn't need them, or I had found another copy from somebody else, and so I sold them for $50 Canadian. And I think I had purchased them for maybe 25. I doubled my money. And I sold them for that price because I knew that was a low price. I knew that that was a thing that would sell. It was still a deal compared to all the other things, but really it was three little figures, right? There are these figures that sell for $100 because of their scarcity. And I really am trying to reflect on why I did that. The altruistic part of me, or the hopefully altruistic part of me, would have said, or the part trying to justify to myself would have said, well, if I sold it for cheaper, somebody could take it and flip it for that profit. So if they're going to make money off of it, why shouldn't I make that money off of it? And that's a potential thing that could happen. I remember selling a bunch of Rune Wars minis. I got it in a bundle deal. I don't play Rune Wars. I said, hey, if you want them, it looks like they're $180 value, but they're no value to me, so I'll sell them for 30. It was like 6 boxes of minis or something. And somebody bought it and they seemed very excited to buy it. This was like 2 years ago. 2 to 3 years ago this happened. And the person who bought it said, yeah, great, I'm so excited. Oh, I can't wait to paint these or whatever. They gave me a line. I was like, great. This is going to a person who's very excited to play it with their game, super happy they're going to a good home. And then in the same Facebook group that I'm a part of, I consistently see them on a listing for $175 for the group. And that, maybe that's what cured me of board game speculation, honestly. Maybe I was so disillusioned by what we can do to each other and how we can behave to each other for the sake of making $150. I mean, this person's been sitting on these minis for like 3 to 4 years in the hopes of making $150. There has to be better use of your time and storage space than the potential of making $150 down the line. And it also just like really bummed me out because there was another person who was I live in Toronto generally, and so there's a person who lived in Guelph, which is like an hour away, who was like, hey, are these still available? Could you get them to Guelph? And I was like, well, I'm not going to drive to Guelph to deliver these for $30. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it, especially when I have somebody in Toronto who's interested in them. But I think the person who lives in Guelph actually plays Rune Wars and might have enjoyed them. And so the idea of holding out and holding out for this good deal, or holding on until something reaches a level of scarcity at which people will buy it, when it reaches that out of print status and that potential cult following, just to make a few bucks when somebody else could be enjoying it and like using it and growing their understanding of the hobby, really turns me off of the whole ideal. And I really try to talk myself out of those. But then again, in any of these hobbies where there is a collector's aspect to it, I understand this mentality. I understand the people who hoarded Beanie Babies hoping for a big score. I understand that all of these little purchases add up. And sure, this might be 150 bucks, but if you make one of those sales every week, you're pulling in $7,500, $7,800 by the end of the year. That's potentially an okay wage for someone, right? It is the way of the world of supply and demand. And if you have the supply and there is the demand, you can set your price. And that is how capitalism works. That is how we exist in this society. And perhaps speculation is just a microcosm of that, and shouldn't be looked on as shamefully as I might be looking on it now. I don't know. I have an open mind here, and I definitely do see both sides of the situation. I just know from my own personality, I would rather see people playing games and enjoying them than trying to make a buck off my fellow gamers. There are costs to this world. I get it. I know. I work in aspects of the industry where I see so many costs of renting space and doing this and doing that and hiring people and paying people and flights and hotel rooms and all that sort of stuff. And you need to charge money for goods and services. And especially the idea of your time, of selling it, of putting up the work into the listing, putting the work into shipping it to someone. All of those things take time, and perhaps time shouldn't be for free, but I don't know. Maybe I just wish our hobby was better, because I know the quality of people that I generally have met in association with playing games, because we like to play and we like to experience with other people or build community. And maybe that's my hope, and where a bit of the sadness comes in when I see people taking advantage of a system. But we also live in a world where people do take advantage. And if it's not you, it's going to be someone else. And I also, unfortunately, recognize the actual reality that we live in. Even still, this still affects me to such an extent that I'm always wary about talking about some of my favorite games that aren't currently in print, because the gamer in me and the friendly, excited board gamer in me just wants to talk about these things that I love and that I'm having a good time with. And yet I also need to recognize that I now exist on YouTube and I have a little bit of an audience. And sure, my reach isn't that of other channels yet, like and subscribe, but I'm aware that if I talk about something and make people want a thing because I love it and I think everybody should try it, and that thing might be out of print, well, people will possibly take advantage of that and charge you more money than I wish you would be paying for that thing. So I don't know. It's tough to see. We've seen it with Battlestar Galactica being sold for $400 until Unfathomable came out, because this thing was scarce and was held in high regard. And because of those two things, it creates this sense of scarcity and excitement around it that fuels people's desires to purchase, which again, just racks up the price. It's a weird thing. It's a weird concept to me, but it isn't going away, especially in the age of crowdfunding, especially in the age of when companies try to incentivize you purchasing. They will give you these exclusive things so that you feel like you are in on the ground floor, so that you feel like your copy will be more valuable, so that you feel like you can make money if you needed to sell it and you won't take a loss, thereby making it less of a risk to purchase their product. That's kind of the state of things, the state of play, as it were. And you know what? I'm just wondering what all of you think about it. So I think that's where we'll leave it for now. Make sure to drop your comments in the comments down below about board game speculation. If anything that I said prompted a response in you, I would love to hear it. On both sides of the spectrum, how often do you resell board games? Why one way is better than the other? How you feel about the whole thing? I'm interested. I think this is an interesting conversation for us to have as a community, and so I hope that you will participate. And if not, well, thank you for watching. Thank you for hitting the like and the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. It's nice just to have these conversations. They don't do as well on YouTube as lists, but you know, share it with somebody. Share it with a board game group if you think this might be a valuable conversation to have. And in either case, I'll go through all the comments and we'll talk about it in a follow-up Table Talk Back episode. Thanks for being here. My name is Chris George, and you know what? Oh no, I don't have a catchphrase. I did have a catchphrase, but then I sold it for a higher price to someone else, and I don't regret that whatsoever. So maybe speculation isn't all that bad.